2026 is the year of clarity, the year where you rise above patterns that no longer serve your soul. I want you to hear this deeply. Love that avoids you, love that withdraws, love that leaves you questioning your worth. It is not your responsibility to fix it. It is not your path to chase it. This year, you declare something sacred. You are emotionally unavailable to avoidant love. And in that declaration, you are claiming something far greater than a relationship. You are claiming your divine emotional sovereignty. For too long, many of us have been caught in the dance of pursuit and retreat, mistaking someone else's inability to show up as a reflection of our value. But here's the truth. Emotional availability is not a gift to be earned. It is a reflection of one's inner alignment. And if someone cannot show up consistently, if they cannot honor your heart with presence, they are teaching you a lesson, not offering love. And it is your responsibility to learn that lesson without losing yourself. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are not cold for refusing to chase. You are wise. Boundaries are not walls. They are sacred structures of protection around your energy. By saying, I will not meet avoidance with availability, you are saying yes to growth, yes to dignity, yes to the life and love you were always meant to receive. You are practicing emotional discernment, the kind that separates fleeting attraction from soul-nourishing connection. Imagine what it feels like to be free from the compulsions of chasing, the anxiety of waiting, the silent heartbreak of hoping someone will change. That freedom is your birthright. When you embrace it, you are no longer dependent on another to define your worth. Your purpose, your joy, your peace, these come from within and from no one else. And that is a power no avoidant can ever touch. So in 2026, you step into a higher frequency. You honor yourself by refusing patterns that diminish you. You end with love that is consistent, respectful, and fully present. And in doing so, you are preparing for a love that is not just safe, but transformational. A love that mirrors the depth, courage, and wholeness that you have cultivated within yourself. You are not closing off your heart. You are opening it wider than ever before, but only to what is worthy, only to what elevates your spirit, and only to what reflects the divine standards of your soul. This is more than emotional availability. It is emotional sovereignty. And when you live in this truth, avoidant love no longer has a place in your life. Stand firm, stand wise, stand whole. This is your declaration. In 2026, your heart belongs to no one who cannot meet it fully. Your energy belongs to no one who cannot honor it. And why? Your love is sacred, divine, and unapologetically yours. Recognizing the pattern of avoidant love is the first step toward reclaiming your emotional power. Many people enter relationships without fully understanding the dynamics that will unfold. And when they encounter avoidant love, they often find themselves trapped in cycles of hope, disappointment, and confusion. Avoidant love is not always aggressive or overtly unkind. It manifests in ways that are almost invisible at first. Someone who seems present but emotionally distant. Someone who engages but retreats. Someone who loves in fits and starts but never fully commits. At the surface, it can feel like normal relationship challenges, but beneath lies a deeper pattern, a consistent strategy of emotional withdrawal that protects the avoidant individual, but often leaves their partner questioning themselves. Recognizing this pattern requires a level of awareness that goes beyond observing behaviors. It requires understanding the emotional architecture of avoidance itself. Avoidant individuals have learned, often unconsciously, to protect themselves from vulnerability. They have built walls around their hearts to prevent disappointment, rejection, or emotional overwhelm. This protective mechanism may have origins in childhood experiences, past heartbreaks, or patterns of inconsistency in early attachment. While it is understandable that a person would want to safeguard themselves, the effect on those who love them can be destabilizing. Partners of avoidant individuals often experience a push-pull dynamic. Here, moments of connection are followed by withdrawal. One day, The avoidant partner is warm, loving, and attentive. The next, they are distant, unavailable, and emotionally cold. This inconsistency creates a feedback loop. The more a partner chases connection, the more the avoidant retreats, reinforcing their pattern of detachment. Recognizing this is crucial because it is not a reflection of you, our worth, or desirability. It is a reflection of their inner coping mechanisms. Understanding avoidant love also means noticing the subtle ways it erodes your emotional energy. It often comes with mixed signals, indirect communication, and a lack of transparency. You may find yourself constantly wondering about their feelings, second-guessing their intentions, and justifying their distance. Over time, this pattern can erode confidence, foster anxiety, and lead to a deep sense of emotional depletion. Many people become so accustomed to explaining, excusing, or adapting to avoidant behavior that they lose sight of their own needs. Recognizing the pattern is the moment you reclaim clarity. It allows you to distinguish between behavior that is situational and behavior that is habitual. You begin to see the signs: missed commitments, avoidance of emotional discussions, reluctance to plan for the future, and a consistent inability to meet you at the level you deserve. Awareness is power, and power begins when you name what is happening. Recognizing avoidant love is not just about identifying behaviors. It is about understanding the emotional consequences of engaging with it. It is about observing how this pattern affects your self-esteem, your emotional availability, and your capacity for healthy connection. By seeing it clearly, you are no longer trapped in denial, hoping that love alone will change someone who is not ready or willing to change. You start to understand that the pattern is systemic, not accidental. It is a reflection of the avoidant person's unresolved fears, and or attempts to fill the gap with your energy will always have limits. This understanding fosters discernment. You begin to ask the right questions. Does this relationship honor my emotional needs? Does it encourage growth or perpetuate anxiety? Is this a partnership of mutual presence, or am I the one consistently showing up while the other retreats? In essence, recognizing the pattern of avoid. And love is about reclaiming your awareness, your boundaries, and your emotional sovereignty. It is the beginning of liberation, because only when you see the cycle for what it is, can you make conscious choices about how to engage or whether to disengage entirely. Awareness is not judgment. It is clarity, and clarity empowers you to step into a space where love can be reciprocal, consistent, and nourishing. Once you recognize the pattern, you no longer operate in the fog of hope and confusion. You begin to operate from a place of insight, wisdom, and intentionality, ready to protect your heart and attract the love that aligns with your highest self. Honoring your emotional sovereignty is one of the most powerful acts you can commit to in your life, especially in the context of love. The T is avoidant or inconsistent. Emotional sovereignty means that your feelings, your energy, and your heart are yours first, untouched, uncompromised, and protected. It is the conscious decision to prioritize your inner world above external validation, to place your emotional well-being at the center of your life rather than at the mercy of someone else's availability. This does not mean that you saint loving or that you close yourself off to connection. It means that you refuse to sacrifice your sense of self for a relationship that cannot meet you with consistency, depth, or presence. When you honor your emotional sovereignty, you are practicing a form of self-respect that is both radical and necessary, especially in a world where so many have become addicted to the highs and lows of emotio. Now, chasing. To honor your emotional sovereignty, you first have to recognize where it is being compromised. Often people give away pieces of their emotional power unconsciously, bending their behavior to fit another person's rhythm, suppressing their needs to avoid conflict, or excusing emotional unavailability as just the way they are. Over time, this creates a subtle erosion of self-worth. The truth is that no one has the right to demand your energy or manipulate your emotional state. When you begin to honor your sovereignty, you start by reclaiming the small everyday choices, how you respond to text messages, whether you wait anxiously for someone to show up, whether you tolerate uncertainty or set clear expectations. These all acts of discernment accumulate into a larger declaration. Your emotions are yours and no one else controls them. Honoring your emotional sovereignty is also about saying no without guilt and yes without compromise. It is the courage to decline a connection that drains you, to step back from someone who repeatedly retreats, and to refuse participation in patterns that diminish your vibrancy. At the same time, it is the wisdom to say yes to experiences, relationships, and moments that align with your inner values and nurture your soul. Sovereignty is not rigid, it is fluid and discerning. It allows you to move through the world fully present while remaining anchored in your truth, so that every interaction, every act of giving or receiving love is voluntary, conscious, and aligned with your highest self. When you honor your emotional sovereignty, you also create a sacred container around your heart. This container is not a wall built out of fear or mistrust. It is a protective space that ensures your energy is invested where it is respected and reciprocated. Within this space, you can experience love deeply without losing yourself in the chaos of another person's avoidance. You are free to feel, to connect, to express your needs, and to receive affection, but always from a place of choice, not compulsion. This is transformative because it shifts the power back into your hands. Instead of being reactive, you become proactive. Instead of being depleted by emotional uncertainty, you cultivate clarity, balance, and resilience. Honoring your emotional sovereignty is also a spiritual practice. It aligns with the universal principle that we are responsible for our inner state before seeking fulfillment from the outer world. When you protect your heart, you are not punishing anyone. You are aligning with the truth that love cannot be forced, and that the highest form of love begins with respect for yourself, for your energy, and for the divine pattern of your life. By prioritizing your own emotional well-being, you naturally attract relationships that reflect integrity, consistency, and authenticity. Avoidant love no longer holds sway over your choices because you have established a standard for what your heart deserves. In every decision you make, in every boundary you enforce, and in every moment you refuse to chase unavailable love, you are practicing emotional sovereignty. You are reminding yourself that your heart is sacred, that your energy is valuable, and that your life is too precious to be spent chasing someone else's capacity to show up. This is not selfishness. It is wisdom, it is courage, and it is the foundation for experiencing love that is not only nourishing, but also transformative, aligned with your highest self and divine purpose. King. The cycle of chasing is one of the most liberating and profound acts of self-empowerment you can undertake, especially when dealing with avoidant love. For too long, many have been caught in a pattern where the heart relentlessly pursues what is unwilling to arrive, where the mind justifies absence, and where hope becomes a prison disguised as desire. Chasing often begins innocently, with the belief that if you love enough, if you give enough, if you show up with relentless devotion, the other person will eventually meet you halfway. But the truth is, love cannot be coerced, nurtured through anxiety, or manufactured through insistence. When you chase, you give your energy away to the void, and in doing so, you erode your own sense of worth and your emotional freedom. Recognizing this, the first step toward breaking the cycle. You must see the futility of chasing not as failure, but as a signal that a higher form of love, one rooted in reciprocity and alignment, is calling you. Breaking the cycle requires self-awareness and honesty. You must observe your own patterns, the moments when you compromise your boundaries to gain attention, the times when you justify distance as tempo, and the hours spent waiting for responses that may never come. This awareness is not about blame or judgment. It is about clarity. The moment you can see your behavior without distortion, you reclaim the power to act differently. The cycle of chasing thrives on uncertainty and hope. It feeds on the belief that your presence alone can elicit love. But love that requires chasing is not love. It is conditional and incomplete. By refusing to participate in this cycle, you assert a profound truth. Your heart is not a project, and your energy is not a tool to awaken someone else's capacity to care. Breaking the cycle also requires emotional detachment, which is not the same as emotional suppression. Detachment is the conscious choice to stop investing energy where it is not reciprocated. It is the recognition that your happiness, validation, and fulfillment cannot depend on someone else's availability. This does not make you cold or indifferent. It makes you wise. You learn to meet your own needs, to honor your own emotions, and to protect your own energy. You stop waiting by the phone, interpreting every silence, or recalibrating your value based on someone else's inconsistency. Instead, you focus inward, cultivating self-love, purpose, and resilience. Detachment creates space for clarity, allowing you to observe the relationship objectively and to make choices that align with your highest good rather than with desperation or fear. Another essential part of breaking the cycle is understanding the difference between love and attachment. Attachment thrives on scarcity, anxiety, and neediness. Love thrives on alignment, respect, and presence. When you chase, you are operating from attachment. You are attempting to fill a gap, to soothe an uncertainty, or to validate your worth externally. By choosing to step out of the chase, you shift into a higher paradigm. You love consciously and wisely, giving attention and care where it is welcomed, valued, and returned. This is N-O-T rejection. This is elevation. You are raising your standard, refusing to negotiate for incomplete love, and prioritizing relationships that honor your full presence. Breaking the cycle of chasing is also deeply spiritual. It is an act of surrender, not to someone else, but to your own truth and divine timing. You are releasing the illusion that control or persistence can manufacture love, and are embracing the reality that the universe responds to alignment, authenticity, and self-respect. When you step out of the chase, you invite a different kind of energy into your life, one that is calm, clear, and magnetic. You no longer give power to absence or inconsistency. You reclaim it fully. Ultimately, breaking the cycle of chasing is a declaration. You will no longer compromise your peace, your energy, or your worth for someone who is unwilling or incapable of meeting you. It is a bold act of liberation that clears the way for love that is abundant, reciprocal, and transformative. When you stop chasing, you stop shrinking, you stop negotiating, and you begin to expand, creating the space for relationships that honor the fullness of your heart and the depth of your being. Alignin. G with higher standards is a profound act of self-respect, self-awareness, and spiritual maturity. It is the conscious decision to define the level of love, respect, and emotional availability you will accept in your life and to refuse anything less. For too long, many have settled for relationships that are inconsistent, conditional, or emotionally unavailable, convincing themselves that love is supposed to be difficult or that compromise must come at the cost of their peace. But the truth is, love that diminishes, confuses, or drains you is not love. It is a reflection of misalignment. Aligning with higher standards is not about perfectionism or rigid rules. It is about clarity, purpose, and self-honor. It is understanding that your heart deserves consistency, integrity, and presence, and refusing to engage in connections that fall short of these principles. To align with higher standards, you must first know yourself deeply. You must understand your emotional needs, your boundaries, and your values. What do you require to feel safe, supported, and cherished in a relationship? What behaviors signal respect, trust, and true partnership? Without this level of self-awareness, it is easy to fall back into patterns of compromise that erode your sense of worth. Higher standards are rooted in self-knowledge. They are not arbitrary rules imposed on others, but declarations of what you need to maintain your emotional and spiritual integrity. When you define these standards, You are not controlling another person. You are honoring the sacredness of your own heart, aligning with Hige. Our standards also means refusing to tolerate patterns that are harmful or inconsistent. Avoidant love, by its nature, is often unpredictable, emotionally distant, and inconsistent. Many find themselves excusing behavior, rationalizing absence, or waiting endlessly for change. But every time you accept less than what aligns with your soul, you are sending a message. It is acceptable for my heart to be compromised. By raising your standards, you break that message. You make it clear to yourself and to others that your love is not negotiable, that your energy is not expendable, and that your emotional well-being is sacred. This is an act of courage because it may challenge relationships, provoke discomfort, or even require walking away from someone you care for. Yet it is also an act of libera. Son, for it frees you from cycles that diminish your power and obscure your true value. Higher standards are also about seeking alignment, not control. It is not about imposing demands or attempting to change someone who is not willing to show up fully. It is about choosing what you accept and what you do not. By aligning with higher standards, you create a framework in which love can be authentic, reciprocal, and nourishing. You are not compromising your needs to fit another person's limitations. Instead, you are creating the conditions for connection to emerge naturally with those capable of meeting you fully. This approach elevates the quality of your relationships, ensuring that the love you receive mirrors the respect, presence, and integrity you offer spiritually, aligning with H. Higher standards is an act of faith. It is the understanding that the universe responds to clarity, self-honor, and energetic alignment. When you refuse to settle for less than your soul requires, you open space for love that resonates with your highest purpose. You no longer chase what is unavailable or tolerate inconsistency. You attract relationships that reflect the fullness of your values. You, our energy, and your emotional maturity. Aligning with higher standards is not rejection of love. It is preparation for a love that is transformative, sustainable, and worthy of your presence. Ultimately, aligning with higher standards is an act of empowerment. It is a statement to the world, to yourself, and to the universe that your heart is sacred, your boundaries are inviolable, and your love is precious. It allows you to step into relationships consciously, with clarity, and with confidence, knowing that you are no longer compromising, excusing, or chasing. You are choosing presence over absence, integrity over inconsistency, and reciprocity over imbalance. By doing so, you set the stage for love that is not only emotionally fulfilling, but also aligned with your highest truth, creating a life and a heart that can no longer be diminished by avoidant patterns. Embracing self-mastery and inner fulfillment is one of the most profound ways to reclaim your power in the face of avoidant love. So often, people search for validation, security, and happiness outside themselves, hoping that another person's attention or affection will fill the gaps within. But when love comes from someone emotionally unavailable, that search becomes a trap. You give away your energy, your peace, and your confidence in the hope of being seen, appreciated, or wanted. Self-mastery is the antidote to this cycle. It is the conscious choice to cultivate your own strength, resilience, and fulfillment so that your happiness is generated from within, not dependent on someone else's willingness or capacity to love. When you embrace this principle, you move from a place of need and desperation into a state of freedom and sovereignty. Self-mastery begins with awareness. It requires that you observe your emotional patterns without judgment, recognizing where you've given your power away to the presence or absence of someone else. Perhaps you find yourself anxious when they do not reply, questioning your worth when they pull away, or adjusting your behavior to match their availability. Awareness is the first step because you cannot change what you cannot see. By shining light on these patterns, you create the opportunity to step outside them, to pause before reacting, and to choose responses that honor your inner strength rather than reinforce old cycles of chasing and compromise. Inner fulfill me. NT grows from consistent practice. It is not a one-time decision, but a daily commitment to nourish your mind, body, and soul. It is investing in passions, cultivating joy, and building a life that feels rich and meaningful independent of anyone else. When you develop interests, skills, and a sense of purpose, your energy becomes magnetic and self-sufficient. You are no longer relying on the error. I see presence of an avoidant partner to feel complete. Instead, you bring fullness to every interaction, creating the conditions for love that is reciprocal, conscious, and emotionally nourishing. Self-mastery is about choosing yourself consistently, not just in moments of clarity, but in the small, everyday decisions that define the boundaries of your heart and the quality of your life. Embracing. Self-mastery also requires cultivating emotional resilience. Life, and especially relationships, are filled with unpredictability. Avoidant love often triggers fear, anxiety, and doubt. When you are committed to self-mastery, these emotions are no longer signals to chase or plead. They become opportunities to anchor yourself more deeply in your own strength. You learn to respond rather than react, to center yourself in peace rather than become lost in turmoil. Emotional resilience is the ability to maintain your stability, dignity, and sense of self even when the external world attempts to shake you. It is the shield that allows you to navigate relationships consciously, with wisdom and integrity. Inner fulfillment is ultimately a spiritual practice. It acknowledges that your worth is inherent, that your heart is sacred, and that the deepest love is first cultivated within yourself. When you are fulfilled from within, you do not tolerate behavior that diminishes you or compromises your energy. You are no longer a participant in the cycle of approval seeking or emotional chasing. Instead, you are a co-creator of relationships rooted in respect, presence, and mutual growth. Our alignment attracts love that mirrors your energy and your standards. Avoidant patterns no longer hold sway over your choices because your joy, validation, and purpose come from your own mastery, not from someone else's inconsistency. By embracing self-mastery and inner fulfillment, you declare a powerful truth. Your heart, energy, and life are sacred. You cultivate a presence so grounded, so abundant, and so emotionally sovereign that avoidant love cannot destabilize you. You step into every connection fully, not out of need, but from wholeness. And in doing so, you create the space for love that is transformative, reciprocal, and aligned with the highest version of yourself. A love that does not diminish but elevates, honors, and celebrates the fullness of who you are. The divine principle of boundaries is one of the most profound tools you can wield in your journey of love and self-respect. Boundaries are not walls built from fear or defense. They are sacred structures, intentional lines that protect your energy, your heart, and your emotional integrity. They are the invisible architecture of self-honor. And when applied consciously, they allow you to engage in relationships without losing yourself to patterns that diminish your worth. In the context of avoidant love, boundaries are not optional. They are essential. They are the recognition that your emotional space is sacred, that your energy is valuable, and that your presence should be reciprocated with consistency and respect. Without boundaries, love becomes a field of compromise, anxiety, and imbalance. With boundaries, love becomes a place of clarity, mutual respect, and divine alignment. Understanding boundaries begins with clarity about your needs and values. What do you require to feel safe, respected, and emotionally nourished? What actions, behaviors, or patterns are unacceptable in a relationship? Many people enter partnerships without defining these lines, only to discover later that they have missed their piece repeatedly, justifying absence, inconsistency, or neglect as normal. The divine principle of boundaries teaches that peace and respect are non-negotiable. By setting boundaries, you are not rejecting love, you are affirming the sacredness of your heart and the importance of receiving care that reflects your worth. Boundaries are not punishments, They are declarations of integrity, signaling that you will no longer allow your emotional energy to be mismanaged or take N for granted. Boundaries are also about presence and alignment, not control. It is easy to confuse boundaries with manipulation, restriction, or ego-driven rigidity, but divine boundaries function differently. They are rooted in wisdom and discernment. When you establish a boundary with someone who is avoidant, you are saying, I value my energy, my emotions, and my peace. I will no longer tolerate behavior that diminishes me or disrespects my heart. This is not a demand for perfection. It is a reflection of self-respect. You are choosing to engage only with those who can meet you fully, honor your presence, and contribute to the sacred reciprocity of emotional exchange. In this way, boundaries act as a filter, guiding love toward alignment and away from patterns that perpetuate confusion, anxiety, or imbalance. Practicing the divine principle of boundaries also requires courage and consistency. It is not always easy to say no, to walk away, or to refuse someone who is familiar, even if they are emotionally unavailable. But courage is an essential part of self-respect. Every time you enforce a boundary, you are reinforcing your own value, reclaiming power over your energy, and demonstrating to yourself and others that your heart is sacred. Boundaries create space for love that is authentic, consistent, and reciprocal. They prevent the erosion of self-worth that comes from tolerating absence, neglect, or emotional unpredictability. In essence, boundaries are a spiritual act as much as they are a practical one. They honor the divine within you by protecting it from pattern that cannot sustain it. The divine principle of boundaries also teaches that love should never feel chaotic or draining. When you enforce boundaries, you are aligning with the principle that relationships exist to support, nurture, and expand your being, not to diminish, confuse, or destabilize it. Avoidant love thrives in the absence of boundaries because it allows the cycle of chasing, anxiety, and inconsistency to continue. Boundaries interrupt this cycle. They create clarity, establish dignity, and offer a blueprint for engagement that reflects mutual respect. They signal that love is not about control or manipulation. It is about presence, integrity, and conscious alignment by embracing the divine principle of boundaries. You elevate your emotional life to a higher standard. You protect your heart from patterns that diminish it. Honor your energy as sacred and create the conditions for love that is consistent, conscious, and transformational. Boundaries are not limitations, they are liberation. They allow you to engage fully, love deeply, and step into relationships with wisdom, courage, and alignment, free from the chaos of avoidant dynamics. In this practice, your heart becomes a sacred space, and every connection you choose is a reflection of the highest standards of self-respect and divine integrity. Preparing for transformational love is not simply about hoping for a better relationship in the future. It is about consciously creating the conditions within yourself. Receive love that is deep, aligned, and sustaining. Transformational love is the kind of love that does not diminish your essence, but amplifies it. It does not demand compromise of your values, energy, or emotional sovereignty, but instead reflects, honors, and elevates the fullness of who you are. To prepare for this kind of love, you must begin with yourself, your heart, your mind, your energy, and your sense of purpose. Love is a mirror, and the quality of connection you attract is always a reflection of the inner state you cultivate. The more whole, self-aware, and aligned you are, the more naturally you draw love that is capable of matching your depth. Preparation begins with clarity about what you will and will not accept. Many people enter relationships with blurred lines, settling for emotional scarcity, inconsistency, or avoidance because they fear being alone or believe that love is conditional. Preparing for transformational love requires honesty with yourself about your worth, your needs, and your standards. You must recognize the patterns that have previously compromised your peace and refuse to participate in them again. Avoidant love, with its push and pull dynamic, can feel familiar and even addictive. But when you commit to preparation, you create a sacred space within yourself that is resistant to compromise. In this way, preparation is not just defensive, it is proactive. You are intentionally shaping the energetic environment in which transformational love can flourish. Central to this preparation is the cultivation of self-mastery and emotional resilience. Transformational love requires two people who are whole, present, and emotionally sovereign. If you have given your power away in past relationships or allowed your worth to be dictated by another's presence or absence, it is impossible to step fully into a partnership of depth. By strengthening your inner foundation through self-awareness, discipline, and the pursuit of purpose, you ensure that your love is available from a place of abundance, not need. This allows you to engage with potential partners consciously and wisely, attracting those capable of offering reciprocity rather than triggering old patterns of chasing or compromise. Preparing for transformational love also involves clearing space for connection. It is a spiritual principle. You cannot welcome what is aligned if your energy is cluttered with old attachments, unresolved emotions, or patterns of compromise. This may require reflection, emotional healing, or the conscious decision to release relationships that no longer serve your growth. When you let go of love, that is avoidant or inconsistent. You are not punishing yourself or the other person. You are making sacred room for love that can meet you fully. The universe responds to clarity and intention, and this preparation sets the stage for connection that is energetic, emotional, and spiritual alignment. Furthermore, preparing for transformational love means embodying the qualities you wish to attract. Love mirrors energy. If you are consistent, authentic, and present, you attract a partner who reflects these qualities. If you are grounded, confident, and emotionally available, you draw someone capable of reciprocity and depth. This is not about controlling outcomes, but about aligning yourself with the frequency of the love you seek. Avoidant patterns lose power over you because you are now led to relationships that nurture, respect, and elevate. Ultimately, preparing for transformational love is about reclaiming your sovereignty, raising your standards, and cultivating a life of emotional wholeness and purpose. It is the conscious decision to stop settling, stop chasing, and stop allowing energy-draining dynamics into your life. By doing this, you do more than attract love. You create a space in which love can thrive. You are no longer a participant in cycles of uncertainty, absence, or inconsistency. Instead, you are a magnet for connection that is conscious, reciprocal, and deeply aligned with your soul. Transformational love is not an abstract hope. It is the natural consequence of inner work, clarity, and the sacred practice of honoring your own heart. Thank you for trusting me with your time and energy, Toda. May your heart always stay aligned and your love be transformative. Goodbye, and remember, your worth is sacred, your boundaries are divine, and your journey toward empowered love has only just begun.